right, welcome back to Swim Experts. Joining us now, Professor Emeritus with University of Alberta, formerly of the Faculty of Kinesiology, Sport and Recreation, now with Sport for Life. She helped develop the Athlete Development Matrix with Swimming Canada. Please welcome Vicki Harbour, Dr. Vicki Harbour. Dr. Harbour, welcome to Swim Expert. We start with this. Tell us about what went into developing Swimming Canada's Athlete Development Matrix.
This Athlete Development Matrix is not particularly unique to Swimming Canada. Every single sport that's in the hunt to be the best is looking at what are the different pillars or pieces that make up a good athlete. And so the Sport for Life Athlete Development Matrix, we've adopted some of the evidence from around the world, and we've come up with 4 pillars. Okay, if you can imagine 4 legs to a table, all of which are well integrated. If you imagine a 4-legged table with a wonky 4th leg, then it's not going to work well. So they're all really well woven together. And those include things from the technical, tactical capacities, physical capacities, including mental skills and life skills. So I was invited to work with Suzanne Pollins with Swimming Canada to support development specifically within their life and mental skills.
Let's talk about life and mental skills. Athletes, all of us, it's been a tough year, certainly for athletes and us regular folks. Life and mental skills as pillars of the Athlete Development Matrix. Tell us a little bit about those and what went into developing those.
The mental skills, if I can, I'm just going to sort of draw the mind's eye back to this Athlete Development Matrix and those 4 pillars. Many times in sport, we get very focused on those technical, tactical, and the physical pieces, and the mental and the life skills become a little bit ignored, or they're not as well attended to. So these have become identified as terribly important pieces, not only in the young athlete development, but to take them through those high performance years, and also when they finish up their career, however high they go, to be able to sort of live this life of well-being and healthy mental skills and so on. So coming back into, what do we mean by these mental skills? These are often skills that revolve around positive attitude, motivation, goal setting, how well the athlete pays attention, can focus on material, on new skills, understanding where their errors come from with the attempt to reduce them. So that's a bracket around the mental skills. The life skills, which are a wee bit different because in the opinion of the literature, they actually underlie the building of good mental skills. So these life skills resonate around development of executive function. So when you think about being a wee toady tiny infant into a toddler, things like being able to focus, period. If you imagine a 2 or 3-year-old trying to focus on something, being able to pay attention to something, being able to follow instructions. So if you can imagine some of those pieces being relevant, not just to the young athlete, all of those skills, but they're very important for all of us as developing humans. And so these life skills, then these executive functions, the cornerstone, then build on social emotional learning skills. And these again come into a bracket of core competencies that involve responsible decision making, self-regulation, self-awareness, social awareness. Those are examples that, again, when we have a good start in these executive functions, we build a good foundation for these social emotional learning skills. And so for Swimming Canada, and not only Swimming Canada, but we've started to understand in other sports that when athletes start to struggle and have a hard time progressing to the next level, competing in different environments and so on, that many, many times their deficits lie in these life skills where they haven't made particularly good decisions, or they've had rocky relationships that it's difficult for them to resolve conflicts. So now, even though historically, we pay a lot of attention to the technical and physical. Now we're being equipped with these other skills that are going to make our athletes even more competent, more resilient, when we can round out that kind of training and offer them those environments to progress in.
It's interesting with high performance athletes because there's such a buildup for such high highs, but also low lows. And I think social and emotional learning, which is something that you help develop in the athlete development matrix, plays a huge part. Explain that concept.
So those core competencies, so I'll say the 5 over again, just so we can kind of wrap these in our mind's eye. And as I say them, if you start to imagine, not just from a sport athlete point of view, but also think about in your life outside of sport. You know, if you've got a family, if you go to school, if you have a career, if you're with your friends who, you know, your non-athlete friends and so on. So think about the application and how these fit. So there's self-awareness. So the idea of, you know, do you know what infuriates you? Do you know what brings you joy? That kind of self-awareness. Social awareness. What's that expression? Can you read a room? You know, can you understand? Can you see this piece around empathy? Can you see if others are in a hard place? Can you see if they're having a tough time or an okay time? That idea of social awareness. The third one is responsible decision making. And we often think about adolescence as a time when responsible decision making is just not in their developmental pathways yet. And yet they can still be presented environments where there's a problem to solve in front of them. What do they see as some of the challenges and problems, and how might they possibly solve it? The fourth one, self-management. How do you conduct yourself with, again, this idea of impulse control? Again, if something runs amok for you, how do you react to it? And how does it influence others along the way? And then this last one, relationship skills, which I think is so, so important. Again, not just as an athlete, you know, the relationships that one forms with their coaches, with their support staff, my goodness, with their athlete peers, even being in an individual sport. What kind of relationships do they have with those people that they might be going toe to toe with every day? And are they cultivating a rich, positive, respectful relationship with them? And so when you think about those 5 core skills, yes, part of it is, how do we bring this to life? And so do you, as coaches, as conductors of these training environments and performance arenas, to what extent do you cultivate in an environment where the athlete steps into that environment and can explore their own level of social emotional learning? And that, to me, becomes the magic, that we're not letting go of any of the technical development. We're not letting go of any of the physical pieces. We're still training as hard as necessary. And yet there's something else about this environment that creates a culture where you and I can be going shoulder to shoulder in the pool, in the gym, whatever we're doing. And yet I still recognize you as a person. I can be respectful to you. If I see you're having a poor day, I have the eyes to go, Jordan, what's going on? Without feeling threatened, without feeling like it's important that I ignore you. And does an environment create that? And does a coach in particular, who really is, as I say, the conductor on that most regular basis, does that coach cultivate that kind of environment? And if they see those kinds of interactions going on with the athletes, they recognize it and they applaud it. So those are the kinds of little kernels that really bring it to life. And as I say, when I speak with some people about these social emotional learning skills, they think it's this either or, that now we're going to start to abandon and ignore the technical piece. No, it's sport is this wonderful place where, because we're so physically engaged, that we start throwing the brain into it and the heart into it, and you get this other piece, and it's a thing of beauty. It's a rare environment where we can do that all in an integrated fashion.
Why is this such a big part of the athlete development matrix, and why do you think that high performance athletes should focus on this? Is it something that is missing, or is it just because of the nature of being a high performance athlete?
I think there's probably at least two reasons that I can think of right now. One is, when we think of high performance athletes, traditionally we look at, again, what are those concrete, easy to observe, easy to measure kind of features to identify who is that high performance athlete. So we've got a stopwatch. How fast do they go? In other areas, how much can they lift? How far can they jump? How high can they jump? And so those become very comfortable universal metrics. Whereas these other pieces that reside more in the mental skills and life skills, that's a bit of a tougher tape measure. And yet our literature is becoming much more sophisticated around how can we get at some of those. So I think that's one where, in the past, high performance has relied heavily on those technical physical pieces because it's easy for us to see and measure. And so it's been easy to, what are some of those expressions that, if an athlete's having a tough time, suck it up, sweetheart, and ignore some of those challenges. And we know the mental health of our high performance athletes, what's coming out again now, not only in the literature, but in popular press, and this is happening globally, is that the pressure is creating huge issues around mental health. So I don't think we can ignore it any longer, in particular now that we've got some different ways to identify how are you doing on your social emotional learning skills. So I would say that, traditionally, we've had a certain type of measures allowing us to ignore the social emotional learning mental skills, and now we need to build our toolkit a bit better. And then the other part, and this is maybe, I don't necessarily want it to sound harsh, but when we think about the composition of our sports system, is that we still cling to our old ways, despite some new evidence that is coming in. And so I think there are still some real old school ways of working with our high performance athletes. And it is kind of, if it's tough, again, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. There's umpteen dozen different expressions that seem to ignore hardship on behalf of the athlete. And so I think that is, what can we do then to support coaches with these new ways of thinking without ignoring their terrific time and expertise in the technical and physical capacities? How can we help them in some of these other ways? So I think it's a bit of like maybe two sides to the same coin, but some are welcoming the new information and going, I've always known that's important, but never really known how to manage it. And others might be meeting it more with whatever, I know how to build an athlete. So those are the two kind of reasons that come to me over that question.
Dr. Vicky Farber, formerly of the University of Alberta, and now Sport for Life, a key member of the development team with the Athlete Development Matrix for Swimming Canada. Great insight and great chat today. Thank you, Dr. Farber, for being our swim expert. Do you want to see the latest videos from Swimming Canada? Well, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Vous voulez voir les dernières vidéos de Natation Canada? Assurez-vous de vous abonner à notre page YouTube.